I don't know what I could take that money and do other than with real estate because it grows so fast.
Right.
And as long as you're in good neighborhoods and you have good property management and things like that, but it like creates a lot of wealth pretty quick.
Exactly. Hello, women creating wealth. Welcome back to another fun, exciting episode. And I know we're women creating wealth, but today, just to like shake things up, we're going to have a non-woman, a man, an actual man is going to be on our show. And we wouldn't do it if he didn't have a ton of cool stuff to offer. So Bryan Driscoll is with us today. Bryan has a long history of success in marketing, and he was like doing some stuff. And then all of a sudden, he purchased a real estate property and he noticed on the closing statement there was a $15,000 wholesale fee attached to his deal. And he said, wait a minute. What if I took all this marketing experience that I have and used it for myself to look for real estate deals in my town, in my neighborhood, in my hood of Pittsburgh? Could I get that to work? And so, here we are many years and many dollars later. He set up just a little, kind of carrot site to tempt people. He totally crushed it. And now he has a company called Motivated Leads. Bryan, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Now, I used to work next to a guy. I'm a real estate agent and investor. And I used to work next, my desk used to be next to a desk of a guy who did cold calling all day for real estate. And he really had it down when he would talk to the people, what he would say to them when he got them on the phone. When you called your first person, I mean, how did that go?
It goes pretty smooth. So I'm used to dealing with people. So basically, and this is a mistake I see a lot of people doing too. Okay, let's even take a step back. When someone fills out a form online wanting to sell their house, sometimes they don't even know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
So they Google like sell my house fast or something like that. They come across a website and they fill out a form. So a lot of people call them back and say, and like, hey, how much do you want? And they go right for the jugular, which sometimes these people just inherited a home. They don't even know wholesalers or investors exist. They're just like, how do I get rid of this property? Because I just inherited a house that has a bad foundation, needs 50 grand at work. I'm working paycheck to paycheck. I can't afford to fix it to even get it ready for the MLS.
Right.
So what I like to do is I like to call and basically I want to find out what's your problem. It's like, do you want to sell fast or is your property just hammered? Like, what are you dealing with? And then I can start thinking, it's like, how can I solve that problem? It's like, if speed's the issue, okay, now I know. Or if price is the issue, if you want to get more money, things like that, then you kind of can use your head and come up with a good dispo and like a win-win situation for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. One of the things he used to say to people is, what are you going to do when you sell your house? Because that helped him to figure out if people were really serious, right? Because they're like, oh, I don't know, but if they're like, I'm going to move to Florida, I'm going to do this, that, and that, then they really are at a point where they're almost ready to let the house go, right? Because a lot of times he's calling people in the house where they're living there. So it's really a different scenario.
That's a good question though. Yeah, because you can kind of weed out the tire kickers for the people that are like, I'm just thinking about it versus I'm out of here in 60 days and I already have my place lined up and I need to sell my house.
Exactly. It's true. It really, it gets you there. It gets you there faster. When you get your properties now, are you only buying them for yourself or are you also doing any wholesaling to other investors?
No, currently now I just buy properties for myself.
Yep.
So I buy them, fix them, and I buy them the same way as I would if I'm wholesaling or flipping. It just, at this point in my life, it's like, I just want to keep them. I kind of hoard houses.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's talk about what you're doing with them when you're keeping all these houses.
Yeah, sure. So here's how a deal traditionally looks. I'm in Pittsburgh. I live in Bethel Park. It's a suburb. So the average house in this area is probably like 250,000. I'm looking for houses to pick up like around 1 to 125 that need a lot of work. Not a lot of work, but need significant work. I want to pick them up like say for 100 grand, put like 30 or 40,000 into them. Yeah. Then they appraise out at say 225. So I go to the bank. I'm like, hey, the property is worth 225. I need a loan for 140 to recoup my cash. And then I go do it again. Yeah. And then what I do with those is normally I don't even do the remodel myself anymore. I have a project manager. He comes in, which that's a smart thing for anyone looking to get into this. Either partner up with somebody that knows construction, like someone knows how to do. So I can do a kitchen for $5 grand. I talk to some guys that are new in the business. Like, yeah, we spent 20,000 on a kitchen. It's like, you can't do that in the investor space. You need the Lowe's off the shelf cabinets. bottom shelf granite, things like you want to do a good job, but you don't need custom cabinets, things like that. So get someone that knows.
Yeah.
But I put it the project manager. He hits me up like 45 days later. Hey, we're done. Then I send it over to my property management company. They rent it out, and then we're making money.
So, and that's what they call the BRRRR strategy, right? Buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. Did I get that right?
You got it perfect.
And that's what you're doing. So you're buying a place with cash, right? The BRRRR works because you start off with cash. So you don't have huge holding costs. You don't have, you're not paying loans. You don't need to try to convince a bank that this thing that looks like a rabble is actually going to be, and you're not doing hard money because that's really your option for that type of property, right?
Yeah. Now, when I started, I had to come out, I had to do 20% down and take loans out. Like my first deal, I didn't have $100,000 sitting around. So some people may not, so they have to go the traditional route.
But that limits the property you can buy.
It does, because like one of my first properties, say I bought $100,000 property, I got to put 20 down plus closing costs. So say, I don't know, 25,000, you have that out of pocket, that money's now gone.
Right.
Like, unless you refinance. So it's like, it's really hard to do it that way, because then you got to save up another 25 grand and your money keeps disappearing. It's in equity, but you can't keep recycling it.
Right. Exactly. And that's the beauty of that. So like Bryan said, if you're just starting out and you don't have any option, it's okay. You can do it that way and you can start to get some equity in there, but then you're looking for properties that are just cosmetics. And I feel like there's more competition with that. You maybe have to be a little luckier, make a few more phone calls, where if like what you were talking about before, like a foundation issue, a lot of people shy away from that. And that back to, I'm just trying to validate everything you just said, like you're back to what your construction manager is so valuable, because when you walk through a property as a new person, somebody just starting out in the idea of real estate investing and renovating and flipping or burring or whatever, when you go look at a property, you might look at it and say, yeah, okay, it looks pretty good, everything's okay. But then a construction manager is going to go out there and say, whoa, you got 50 grand right here. I remember one property, just for some reason, it just reminded me of a property that I went to look at with a client, and the foundation was here and the house was like, had slid off the foundation by like an inch and a half. And I'm looking, I'm going, holy crap. And there's all these people walking through the house, homeowners are just like, oh, it's not, it needs some paint. I'm like, no, it's sliding off the foundation. It's like major stuff going on here.
You know what? It's funny you say that too. So I got my project manager, he handles stuff, but my first house I bought, I used a property inspector. His name is Bryan. Charges like $500. And this was the house that I was going to live in. And he went through, did the whole rundown. He makes that any property inspector is going to make the house look like crap. They find everything. But what I did also, which is a little bit overkill, but every single property I've purchased, I've had him walk it. I pay him his $500, and most of the time, that's fine. He saved me from buying a house, though. That it was, I don't know if you know if they have these in where you are, but it was called a Sears kit house.
Yeah.
You know about those?
Yeah.
So he's like, this is a Sears kit house and it was built wrong. And it was an expensive house. This was like a $250,000 house. It was probably the most expensive we were looking for. And I backed away from that because of him. I would not have known that. The things he found out. So anyone, especially when you're just getting into it, find a reputable property inspector.
Yeah.
Yeah. And have them walk it, just pay them their money to see, because you're not going to notice things.
Right. And you can't know everything, right? I mean, until you've walked through hundreds of homes yourself.
Right.
Right. I mean, this looks fine. That looks fine. And then you're like, oh, that's asbestos. Oops. Oh, that's, oh, we've got mold. Oh, we've got, right? I mean, all kinds of stuff that you may not recognize as a homeowner that somebody is going to, right. And not even a homeowner, a person who's trying to get into this for the first time. Maybe you're a carpenter and you know a lot about carpentry. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have somebody who knows a lot about electricity and, other things that you're just not as familiar with, to go through the house with you. And yeah, absolutely. Even though that guy has paid for himself, right? How many times just by saving you the trouble of buying a house that was put together wrong.
Yep.
Yeah. Unbelievable. It's fun. So you're not involved at all with your tenants.
No, not it. I was.
Yeah.
I don't play well with tenants.
Right.
I did my own property management in the beginning, and my problem is I'm too nice.
Yeah.
So I'll meet a tenant that wouldn't qualify, but they meet me and like, hey, I'm getting kicked out of my place. I really need this place. I turned myself around. I got a job. I'm like, okay, don't screw me over. I'm going to do this. And then 6 months later, they quit paying rent. And then they leave after a couple months of not paying rent. They leave their whole house full of garbage.
Yep.
And it's just like totally trash. So,
Yep.
so I don't do that anymore.
And you're singing the exact song that so many people, and that's why a lot of people don't want to be a landlord, because they're like, I know I'm going to get walked all over because I just know I'm a softie, right? As a real estate agent, I started off doing rentals and I rented to one person. I didn't even rent. I convinced a landlord, and I'm sure it was against his better judgment. I convinced the landlord to take this family. They'd moved from Florida. Their house had been foreclosed on because at that point, the Florida market was completely, bust. I'm like, it wasn't their fault. Florida just, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the first thing she asks me when we're signing the lease is, how late can I pay my rent without getting a penalty? And I'm like, are you shitting me right now? I just, don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah. And you got to learn, like you got to get punched in the face and see. Some people are probably really good at that. I just know I need the buffer, because then I just look at the numbers, just like, okay, they qualify or not.
Exactly. And that saves you from discrimination claims. It saves you from everything. You just need that insulating layer, and you can be a nice person and not never know that somebody else is saying no every day on your behalf. Because that's what they do for a living.
Right.
Oh man. So what kind of advice would you give to someone who's thinking, I really think I can do a BRRRR. I'm kind of handy. I can do my thing. What would you say to that person?
First thing I would say is go out and do it. So a lot of people keep thinking, they're like, okay, well, I got to figure out where I'm going to get the money, and I'm going to figure out how I'm going to fix the house. And then all this stuff. It's like, go out there and find the property. Like, get out there and start actively doing it. If you're just starting, you probably don't need to pay for marketing. You could probably drive for dollars or do something really cheap or post in Facebook groups. Yeah. Just go out there and find the property. Once you find it, then figure out what's next. Like, obviously you want to know a little bit, but I see a lot of people just get held up on, I got to get my contractors lined up. I got to get all this lined up, and they never get to start.
Yeah.
So that's what I say. Just start.
Just do it. Analysis paralysis. I'll get you every time.
Oh yeah.
Right. I mean, I got to tick all these boxes. I got to just find the property. That's the hard part. The money will materialize. If worst case, you get some partners or whatever, you'll find the money, you'll find the people, but you just got to get the property and just do it. That's excellent advice. I love that.
You know what? Yeah, I'll tell you a story too, real quick one, just on this topic. So I have 3 kids, right? They're 11, 9, and 8. And they come up to me and like 2 months ago, like, hey Dad, we want to build a tree house. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Not thinking, I didn't even know what was involved with it. And this whole process, I'm like, okay, if we want to build a tree house, it's like 8 feet in the air. It's like 10 by 12. Like, if we want to start, all I need to do is I need to frame, like, even figure out how to do the base. So I didn't think about anything else other than, which I found this Nelson guy on TV, like the TV guy sells stuff to mount into trees. So we just have to get the pillars in. And then it's like, okay, after that, okay, well, what's next then? And that's kind of how I'm doing a process. It's like, just figure out what you need to do first.
Yeah.
And our current stage is we just put the floorboards down and now have 2x4. So I have to figure out how to frame. But it's like, as long as you're making forward movement, you're going to be okay. Just keep that momentum going.
You're absolutely right. And because you could look at that project and say, if you stand at the bottom of the tree, you're looking up and you're going, man, this is going to suck. We're going to have to carry all those heavy pieces of wood up there. How are we going to get plywood for the floor? What are we going to do? Blah, blah. And you would just stand at the bottom of that tree crying for and then you'd never build that house. You'd never build that tree house, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the problem with this is I told my kids we're doing it, so I couldn't even back out. It's like, I already told you guys, I had my foot in my mouth. So I'm like, this is a big project,
Right. But you can just go get a crane and lift something up there. Be done in an afternoon. But then you wouldn't have that beautiful bonding experience.
Right. Yeah. And the bonding experience is starting to happen now, because the whole first month, all the wood's too heavy. They can't even lift it. Yeah. So I'm just doing it myself. But now they get to start feeling the pain. I was like, I call it. I have them carrying the light stuff up.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That sounds like a fun project though.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So what would you say has been the highlight of your journey as a real estate investor?
Well, I like taking junky stuff and fixing it. So I really like that on the real estate side. I don't necessarily do the real estate as much for cash flow now. and profit. I more do it as I want to buy properties and push the money into the future.
Mhm.
But it's really weird. I was just looking at this like last week. I'm like, man, I've accumulated a lot of wealth through buying properties, and I bought some properties I didn't even think they're like borderline on a good deal or not. And then looking back, you're like, boy, I was a genius on those just because of appreciation and things like that, and then the taxes and everything. So it's like,
Yeah.
it accumulates a lot. So someone was just having a debate on a Facebook group. They're like, hey, you have all this equity tied up in your properties. You could do other stuff with it. I'm sitting there thinking, it's like, I don't know what I could take that money and do other than with real estate, because it grows so fast.
Right.
You know, and as long as you're in good neighborhoods and you have good property management and things like that, but it like creates a lot of wealth pretty quick
Exactly.
with little, like, not, it's not little effort. You got to fail a couple times, but it's not like I'm digging ditches.
Yeah. And that's interesting you say that, because your mindset is exactly, I think, the mindset that you have to have. Like, yeah, you might fail a couple times, but then you've learned, and then you don't do that again, and you just move on, right? Instead of saying, oh, this just broke even. That really sucks. I'm no good at this, right? It's just like, oh, okay, I learned that. Now I got to know this. Now I'm going to bring my person through to walk through these properties with me. Now I'm going to figure this out. And oh, interest rates went up. Okay, well, that's okay, because now I know you're not big into debt, right? You don't like to have tons of debt, like you say, using your equity. I could go buy a castle with my money, whatever, and rent that out. But you've got your niche of single family homes, right? Is it primarily single family homes that you're investing in?
Yeah, all single families, all in one zip code.
Yeah, yeah. And then you know what you're doing.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, so I like that. There's a lot of people are investing in neighborhoods they've never even walked through, right? And I'm not saying that that's bad. The cheapest house, you can get a $500,000 fixer-upper in my town, and it's crap. I'll walk through it, and you can't add any value to this place. You can add a lot of money, but you're not going to pull it out. You've got to wait now for whatever till 15 years for them, because as much as you're going to put into it, that's all it's going to be worth, right? If I put 70,000 in, it's going to be worth 70,000 more. And that's not an investment.
Right.
Plus you've got a lot, even for just 20% down, you've got a lot of money tied up in there. And it just doesn't feel that great. So for me, I would have to drive like an hour and a half to the west or the north, or, the south. No, not the south. Just those are my only options, west or north. And then I could probably find a halfway decent place that would be a real fixer-upper for like 250.
Right. Yeah, and it all depends. Like, everyone's like, some people want to flip. Some people do land. It's like, it's like you just got to pick what you want. Like, so I do the buy and hold, because what I know and it fits. Some people like flipping. Some people like wholesale. Some people like doing sub-2 deals, like owner financed. It's like there's so many different ways. They all work if done consistently.
It's absolutely right. Exactly right. And you can't say one thing works and one thing doesn't, because obviously in every category, there are tons of people making a ton of money. So yeah, absolutely. Cool. So what do you wish you knew back when you started this thing that you didn't know then, but you know now?
I wish I would have bought more houses. Like, looking back, and also like, I wish I would have bought more places. Like, I wish I would have aggressively looked more. But back then too, it looked like it was the top of the market. Like, it's been the top of the market for a while. Like, it just keeps going up. Everyone's like, this thing's going to drop sometime, and it doesn't. So yeah, I wish I would have purchased more properties, basically.
Yeah, this COVID made this, I think, an artificially long cycle, because all of a sudden people's, had to redecorate themselves, move themselves around to a place that would accommodate this new lifestyle. And now I think interest rates have given us are prolonged, at least in my area, they're prolonging the cycle, because there's just no inventory in that band of, 350 to 650. There's just very little property.
Yep.
Because, right, who wants to sell their 3.5% interest rate to go buy a 6.5% interest rate? Nobody. Are you going to keep doing what you're doing, or do you have like a different goal or plan or thought for how you'd want to change things up or shake things up?
You know what? I was thinking about it. So I do single families in my neighborhood. It's a nice neighborhood, so we get good tenants, things like that.
Yeah.
And I was debating, because single families kind of suck, because you have to do them all, like roof, kitchen, all that kind of stuff. And I was thinking, maybe get into multis or apartments
Yep.
because you have one roof for all of them. It's just additional zeros, but you only got to find a property once. But I keep weighing the options on that because number one, if say back in 2008, if you were in a situation you needed to liquidate, it was going to be hard unless you didn't know that much money.
Yeah.
So I always look at single families. I can liquidate in a second if I own them right because they're for families. Like it's
Right.
all the population. If I get into commercial and multifamily stuff like that, now I'm only selling to investors.
Right.
And you're dealing with tenants that want to rent apartments versus families that want to rent houses. So
Yeah.
I keep going back and forth on that. I'm sticking with the houses for now, but it's always in the back of my head. It's like, because I have the cash now, it's like I could do bigger things,
Yeah.
but I can't buy bigger houses. Like at some point, they don't make sense for a rental.
No,
So like,
exactly.
those are the things I debate on my side. So it's like, I'm going to keep doing this for now, but I'm also right at this moment holding cash versus going out and trying to buy a bunch of deals because I got a feeling something's going to happen in the market. So it's like, unless a real smoker pops up, I'm chilling out for a second.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever do any hard money lending or anything like that?
No, I've never lent money, hard money, but I've never borrowed hard money.
Yeah, that's what I meant, lent it.
Yeah.
Well, it's just sitting in your pocket now, so you lend it to somebody.
Yeah. And you know what? I lent it to one person, but I looked at hard money and the whole value is having cash in my pocket. So I don't really even like lending it out because when that deal pops up, you got to be able to act like instant.
Immediately.
It's
Yeah.
not like, hey, you know what? I got to go find the money.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I have it here. And if I lend it out to other people, I might make 10% back. It's like, but when that deal pops up, you're going to make $100,000 on, you don't have the cash anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, I did some, but it was not enough to buy a house with anyway. So it was okay.
Yeah. It's good because you get a return and everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, compared to putting it in some, whatever.
Right.
Somebody said the other day, oh, Vanguard's paying 4.7% on their saving, in their whatever now. And I was like, great, good for them.
Right. Yeah.
I'm getting 10. Thank you.
And hard money rates will probably be going up soon too, I think.
Yeah. I mean, they probably should have already. I lent it to a friend. So I kept I kept everything. I felt very fair and low price, but you're right. They should definitely be, and they probably already have. I haven't talked to anybody lately, but if they were like, 10 to 12% before, they're probably double that, not double that, but they're probably at 15, 16, right? Back up to there now.
Right.
And that really kills your return if you're trying to do a project with hard money.
It does. And then I even think, not to go in a rabbit hole, but even the commercial loans, like I have all commercial loans, they reset every 5 years. So it's like, you want to look at cash flow. In 5 years, your interest just went from 2 or 3 to like 7.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have the properties owned right, if you bought them and over leveraged and you have a bunch of them, like I got a buddy who owns like 400 properties. You take that kind of properties and just lose $100 cash flow a month. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. Absolutely. And yeah, just to interest.
Yep.
Good points. Good point. You're doing it right. You're doing it smart. I know you talk to some people who are really young, who've never lived through a market cycle. And they just think, right, you could have been in the market for a long time and just seen it go up and up and up, right? You could have started in 2008 or 9. And all this time you're watching the market go up and you think this market's just always going to go up, but it's not. It's not. And if your whole plan is based on the market always increasing, guess what? There's going to come a day when you're going to be very sad.
And it hurts when it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Bryan, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I'm glad we made an exception and put you on the show.
Hey, well, thanks for having me.
And thank you, listener, for listening. I want you to figure out, who can I forward this episode to? What 5 people can I forward this episode to who are going to really benefit from all that Bryan has shared today? Oh, Bryan, by the way, if people want to reach out to you, is that okay?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, they can reach out to me. My website's motivatedleads.com.
Excellent. And you help other people get leads for their business, right?
We do. That's actually what we do. We generate leads of motivated sellers, like people that want to sell their house all across the country.
Amazing. That's fantastic. So yeah, you may want to become a client of Motivated Leads, and we'll put that into the show notes for you. So send Bryan's episode to somebody and come back next week.